If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the Williamson County Animal Control and Adoption Center. I'm Debbie Sims and I work in public information for the shelter, and my special guest today is Williamson County Commissioner Judy Hayes. Hi, Judy.
Hi. Hello.
I'm so glad to have you here, and I noticed as I entered the center today that people were campaigning outside, but there won't be any Judy Hayes for commissioner anymore.
Not this year, after 28 years.
28 years. Well, we congratulate you and thank you on behalf of Animal Control and the whole county for 28 years of service.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I will miss it. I think it was the right thing to do, given the redistricting, and to find people who are now serving District 1, and I felt out of respect for them, it was probably time for me to step aside and just watch from the sidelines and hopefully stay involved.
Well, you'll have plenty of spare time out there on the family farm, and you're one of the few people I've met over the years I've been here that is actually a native of Williamson County. Now, you were born on the farm that you live on now, is that right?
That is correct. I was literally born in the house that we still own. That was a house that was built in 1805. I'm not quite that old, but it was built then. It's behind the clapboard. It is log. It was the first home built in the Burwood community, and it was the Parson Pope Eastview. So I'm very proud that it's still a home. My husband and I built a house out there while my parents were still living, and so we're there on the family farm.
Now, your family name was?
Grigsby.
You were the Grigsbys, and they've been in Burwood for,
well, yes,
who knows?
Well,
do you know what it dates back to? Or they
well,
early
actually,
settlers?
my mother was a Barker, and she was the Barkers and Lavenders were some of the original settlers.
Wow.
And so we were there for a long time, and some Barkers still live there, and our relatives. We have a claim to fame of one of the finest country stores anywhere in the nation, and it is on the National Registry, Huff's General Store.
Right.
It has the best sandwiches for anywhere, and rolling ladders, and is a wonderful community center for our Burwood community. So we're very proud of that, and I'm very proud to be a native of Burwood.
Well, we're pleased that you have served the county in the way that you have. Now, you were a teacher at one time, is that right?
Yes. Right after I graduated from college, I did teach. I taught at Bethesda and at Grassland. Delightful times, and then I left teaching, took a year's leave of absence to finish my master's, and did that. I had graduated from David Lipscomb, and then I went to, it dates me to George Peabody before it merged with Vanderbilt, to work on my master's. In the meantime, my husband and partners had started a WIZO radio station. He was in radio then as well as now, and they needed someone to work some during the summer. So I went in and filled in doing that for a summer and stayed 14 years.
Wow.
Doing production and promotions and sales and just customer service type things for the radio station. I enjoyed that very much, and we sold that station in the early 80s.
Is that on West Main? Or
that was out on West Main.
Going out of town, okay.
Right, it was WIZO then. And then they bought the what is now WAKM. And I said, well, I will just do other things and volunteer. And who would know that I ended up in politics because of a knock on the door one night when neighbors came and asked me to run.
Oh, well, what was there a specific issue in the community that was going on at the time that brought you into public service?
Well, not really. I had never even thought about it. I'd always been interested. And from the teaching standpoint and the community standpoint, my mother was a teacher and my dad was a farmer. I was always loved agriculture and 4-H, very active in 4-H. Went to college because I'd been showing beef cattle, and I had my college fund with the beef cattle.
Right.
And it was our former commissioner from that area had retired, and I had not even thought about it. And a group of citizens came and asked me to run, and I just said, oh, I hadn't even thought of it, no. I don't think that would be anything I'd be interested in. They said, well, you think about it, and a week or so later they came back. They had already picked up the filing forms, already had the 25 signatures, and said all they needed was my signature.
So they filled it out for you.
They filled it out for me, and so I just thought, well, I'll leave it in the Lord's hands, and I do care about the county, and I will just see what happens,
Yeah.
and so the rest is history.
Well, the rest is history. And we go back to your love of animals, growing up on a farm and doing 4-H, which a number of children in our county still do. And I
Right.
don't think people realize that I think it's 40 to 50,000 of the residents of our county live in unincorporated areas, and they are still involved in a lot of family farms. Now, how did you get involved with dogs and cats? Because that's what we're all about at the shelter.
Right.
And tell me a story about the radio. You told me a little bit about you trying to get animals adopted over the radio.
Right. Well, I've always loved animals, and my dad would always just say, oh, no, here she goes bringing in another one, because there were always strays on the side of the road, and I would always bring them home and take care of them. And so when I was in teaching, there wasn't that much opportunity. But in radio, I saw what our animal control, which wasn't called animal control, it was called rabies control. The only state law that had to do really with animals at that time was that each county had to have a rabies control officer. So we had rabies control, a rabies control officer. The pound, as they called it, was a fenced-in area that was up on the hill, above where the Sonic on Highway
On Hillsborough Road?
Road.
About what year was that?
That would have been back in the early 70s, probably.
Okay.
And so that was the only care. And being around with the radio, I would hear that. I would hear people calling our local swap shop or trade time with lost dogs, found dogs. I have dogs that I want to give away. They all just touched my heart. And then I would go and I would see the animals that were in the pen, and I know what the end was going to be, because there wasn't an active adoption program. So I asked, well, would you save this animal and let me put it on radio and see if I can't find a home? And they said, well, sure, we'd do that. So I started putting on Swap Shop, and I started doing little ads to get the radio to get them on, and found that. And then when I'd found strays, I would use that as a medium to try to find the adoption.
So you had to describe the animal and its temperament and its age
Yes.
and everything
And you
over
always,
the radio.
Just like with children, you always pick out the best thing
That's
about
right.
them. And so you would tell about how cute they were and how cuddly they were,
Right.
and all the sweet things.
Well,
about
you
them.
started our first adoption center then. I'll give you credit for that.
No, it was, we were all working on it. By that time, it was growing and had grown to where we had a block building that was back of where the Franklin Sewer plant
Right.
is now on Hillsborough Road. And it was a place where we did house some animals, and it was a step up from no shelter outside, but it was certainly not anything to be proud of, because the inn was always basically the same.
Well, the county evolved a
It-
great deal in
it
this
did.
28 years. The population's probably 5 times what it was when you were started in politics, and it continues to grow.
It
And now
continues.
industry comes, and Cool Springs starts, and
Right.
you see all that happen, and you see the evolution at animal control. And it's interesting that the only law that existed in the 70s, you said, or early 80s?
Late 60s, early 70s.
Late 60s, early
was
70s.
declaring about it being rabies control. And then on the books became humane treatment of animals, or at least the state law was written where they had to be sheltered. It was a stab at trying to get some humane aspects, but it was not very clear. It was just that you have they have a right to shelter and food and water, but it wasn't that much enforced.
That was it 1978, the first time the county itself tried to put forth any legislation?
Something like that, yeah. And there wasn't a lot of teeth in it, but it did make an effort, and I was proud that there was an effort. I think the awareness became such that people realized that we needed to really respect our animals, and we needed to find homes, and it made a better world for all of us. So, and it was a health factor too, because and animals are carriers of disease, and we wanted to make sure that their life was better, but the life of the people were better. And we wanted education. It was very important to educate people on the spaying and neutering. And that was not a concept from a rural area that was very deeply thought of.
No.
And so it was a vast education. And the cities, as they became bigger and incorporated, the stray animals became a real problem. And so they became willing to address it. It was just like a big puzzle. Everything sort of had to fit into place, but there had to be willingness to act and willingness to educate and use all medium to educate the people.
Right. And I think you were probably a bit before your time. You were a leader in that, because most people don't realize that in 1978, I looked up the population figures, and this county only had 25,000 people.
Was that amazing?
And that is amazing, amazing. So the progress in the county brought a different type of resident, and then subdivisions didn't exist in 1978.
Exactly. Right.
Cool Springs was a farming.
It was a strawberry
community.
field and farming field. That's right.
And when you went to David Lipscomb, you had to live on campus.
That's right.
And go home maybe on the weekends if you could find a way to get back home.
If you find a way home, that's right.
That's right.
Because you had no cars. Boy, that makes me feel old.
And now it's a daily thing to.
It's almost connecting from here to there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just one big metropolis. So you've seen it change quite a bit. What about horses? Now, have you been around horses your whole life too?
Well, we had some horses on the farm. I have, and of course, maybe not to the degree that I was involved with the dogs and cats. My husband, though, grew up on Harlinsdale Farm, and his dad was the manager of Harlinsdale. So that has been forever. We used to be out at Harlinsdale a lot. I had the pleasure of knowing Midnight Sun before he died.
Right.
And it was a beautiful area, and still is, and of course very, very grateful that it's now a park.
Yes.
And look forward to it being a continued, revered park, because probably 98% of the horses that are around now in the walking horse field have Midnight Sun blood running in its lineage. So it's something to be very proud of, and something I think Williamson County and Franklin can really be proud of.
Yeah, and that's one of the quaint things about Franklin, and really makes it unique. And recently was selected the greatest southern town. Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Make us all proud.
It does make us all proud. And when we unite together and work as partners in all these things, we all benefit. And that's what I've always felt like with animal control and adoption, with preservation of green space, with I'm involved in Keep Williamson Beautiful, with our tourism industry, our Convention Visitors Bureau. Everything we work together in, the better off we're all going to be. It's a wonderful place to live, and we just need to protect it and revere it and be so proud of it.
Well, I think you can see that when you mentioned Harlinsdale, and you can see when you come into town that we didn't tear everything down.
Exactly.
That the factory has remade itself into something great, and destination downtown is repeatedly the best downtown in America.
What a wonderful gateway to come into our area. And I'm very proud, and you just have to drive out any of the roads and you see the beauty of the pastures and the rolling hills, and you can tell I love this area. And someone has said, since there are so many new people, have you lived here all your life? And I said, not yet, but I do plan to.
We say that in my neighborhood. We say, I wasn't born in Cottonwood, but I got here as soon as I could.
Right.
Yeah. So we're all proud of that. We're going to take a short break now, and then we'll be back with Judy to talk about the current laws that govern the welfare and humane treatment of animals in our county.
Hi, I'm Vince Gill. Did you know that car accidents are the #1 cause of death in young people ages 16 to 20? As alarming as that is, there's something we can do about it. If you just take a simple pledge, it'll help keep your families and your friends safer while you're out on the road. I pledge to wear my seatbelt every time I ride in a vehicle and make sure that others in my vehicle are protected as well. Well, that's it. Come on and join the thousands that have already taken this pledge. Don't be a statistic, be the clique.
We are the Lady Rebel State Soccer Champions.
And you're watching WCTV.
Hi, and welcome back to Pet Watch. We'll continue our talk now with Judy Hayes, who is retiring after 28 years of service as a county commissioner. Judy, in 28 years, you've done a lot for the animals of this county. People don't really know, but not very many laws existed at the time you started serving the county. And you mentioned earlier that there was just like a rabies control officer, and really the only laws that were complied with were state laws requiring rabies. So we're kind of dealing with the crisis prevention aspect of it. And there was a small animal pound where there was no adoption program when you started. Now, as your years of service progressed, what did you see as a need for animal control laws in the county? How did this come about that we created a series of laws and regulations?
Well, first, I don't want to take any credit. I was just one of several people who really loved animals and saw a need. So I'm certainly not a standalone person when it comes to this. We had a group of people who did organize and did want to try to improve the situation of Williamson County. We had Mr. Ring who was county executive at the time, was very proactive in allowing us and wanting us to be humane in everything we did, followed by all the others that, and certainly today we have a great advocate in Mayor Anderson who is always there for us. I think a lot of it came, as you mentioned during the break, a lot of it came because our population was growing, and with that we had greater demands. There were a greater number of animals around. People did move off and leave animals. They became somewhat of a problem being strays. They needed homes, they needed answers. So we used that as an educational tool. We appealed to the legislative body of our county. The state was beginning to see a need of humane laws too. We grew into where it was, rather than just a part-time office, there was a hired person who was full-time. The space became an area that at least it did have some housing, and adoptions were allowed through that. We did demand, of course, before they left there, they had to have the rabies shots. That was always a rule. Rabies clinics were set up throughout the county, and always very effective to go out in the rural county to make sure that they were vaccinated for rabies. But things did not evolve as quickly as it might seem, because it was just there was a lot of demand with the growth for educational facilities, for a lot of things, and education had to play such a vital part, because people would say, oh, there's no need for doing that. The animals will take care of themselves, or there'll be a group of people that will take care of that. So it did take a lot of education and a lot of people just really working together to try to evolve. We were very excited when the current facility was built. We did get behind that. It's certainly, we know that there are improvements that are continuing to be made. We're encouraging that. But we also know that it was such a step up from where we had come from. We did have an intake area. We did have an impound and an adoption area, something we'd never had before. We did stress the health of the animals. We did start using veterinarians where we could take animals to veterinarians, where before we would call veterinarians. And I've always prided having such a wonderful group of veterinarians in our county,
yes.
because there have been so many times throughout the years that I'd find strays and take them to the veterinarians, and they would fix them, and they would bandage them up, and we would take them back, or they would even make calls out to the local animal control, which was then called the pound. And I remember one instance finding a dog that had been hit by a car with a broken leg, and I carried it to a local vet, and he said, well, you'll never place this one. I got it on radio, and I told about the pitiful situation and how important it was that it had a good, loving home. Had wonderful homes that I found through that one, and it was just the people who responded. And I later joked with the vet, and I said, I had such a wonderful home there. What can we do to maybe bandage up a few other animals to make them
Right,
really
and
hit
they do tug at your heartstrings.
They tug at your
They
heartstrings.
do.
They do
And,
indeed.
the veterinarians are still a vital part.
They
even
are
though
still, they are.
we've grown to have our own veterinarian in-house now.
Yes.
We consult with many. We have an exotic animal seizure from time to time.
Right.
We call the veterinarians in the area that are more familiar with that species, or be it a bird or a reptile of some
Right.
kind, and they willingly come in. They help us out when we do massive spay-neuter clinics.
Right.
They do our rabies clinics,
They do.
which are still an important part.
Right.
We do those twice a
They
year.
they do a beautiful job for us, and we're very fortunate to have the quality and to have Dr. Burgess in our facility. It's just wonderful because now we can monitor the health while they're there. We can make sure our mandatory spay neutering is done before the animals ever go to their
Right.
their forever homes, and it is such a plus to our whole community.
Well, we've come a long way. Let's talk about some of the things that went into the animal task force that you served on. In 2010, you compiled a number of laws into this little yellow booklet that you've been holding there,
Right.
which has a long name, the rules and regulations governing dogs and cats in Williamson County.
Right.
Basically, we have had to put down on paper the things that most responsible pet owners already know, but some don't. And to give us some enforcement power, we've had to go over all the topics, like what is an adequate shelter, and we still have instances where people report animals. So we define that in the book. Any of our county residents that have an interest can get a copy of this on our website or pick one up at the shelter. And we have to define what is abandonment.
That's right.
What is a vicious dog? Those kinds of things. What were some of the other topics that you remember you had to discuss when you brought all this together in the form of a legislation?
The task force was very critical, I think, in a step to where we've gone now. It was a group of people who were loving animals coming together and thinking through every step of the way. The rules had to be written, they had to be thought through, they had to be checked for it being the best for the community, the best for the animal, and would it pass all kinds of criteria and be accepted by the county commission. We worked hard on, in fact, spent about a year on the task force. I was honored to be chairman of that task force. We had a group of local residents, veterinarians, any number of people who served on that. The outcome, I think, our goal was to improve animal control and adoption, to improve the life of all the animals in our area, to make everyone who adopted an animal a responsible pet owner, and to look at the whole adoption process, the whole animal care process, and make sure that we tried to attack the major problem of overpopulation, which is really being involved in the spay neutering. So we did look at everything from the how if you had to tie an animal, how it could be tied with humane aspects, where the trolley did move. For shelter, we had seen areas where a shelter would be nothing more than an old barrel that maybe had one side out. We had to address all those issues, and we did so very carefully, with earnestness and all kinds of research being done. And with this came the yellow book that does specify the rules and regulations. It did pass the county commission, so it does become enforceable. And we're now in the process of looking and just tweeting as time grows and things change. Sometimes they just needed to be tweeted a little bit. But we spent a long time working with our task force, and we realized that we had to get into a program of really educating about spay and neutering, educating that it was very important that the 67,000 plus animals who are left intact, how they can evolve from one animal, whether it be a dog or a cat, over a 6-year period. That is something that we have to address. And I think now, as you drive out through the communities, you're seeing a difference. I think we're beginning to see a difference. We spay and neuter every animal before it leaves the shelter. We make sure that we offer those possibilities available to people who qualify and who cannot afford to spay and neuter their animals. If you have something intact, please call Animal Control and see if you qualify. We have spayed so many and neutered so many animals, and it is beginning, I think, to make a difference. The answer used to be when they came to Animal Control, you hope for adoption, but our euthanasia rate was unfortunately up very high, even as high as 78%, even though we worked hard toward adoption. I'm so proud now that it has dropped down to approximately 10%.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is amazing.
I
give my kudos to our director, Laura Chevarero, to Dr. Burgess, to all the wonderful volunteers who help us walk and socialize the animals.
That's right. We couldn't do it without the volunteers. They help us every day.
And to socialize the animals is so important to make them more adoptable. But our task force covered every aspect of animal control life, animal control from the intake to the impound to the monitoring of diseases. We're not just about spaying and neutering. We're about rabies control. We're about parvo control. We're about keeping things.
Microchipping.
We're about
Don't forget
microchipping.
That. That's a new
we're about
technology, but so important.
Return to the owner. We're working with rescue groups. We're working to educate the public, and we're working to socialize the animals, and we're working to match the animal with the appropriate people. So we're in the new century of this is what you do to give the animal and the owners of the animals, the parents of the animals, the very best experiences ever.
Well, I thank you for all you've done for the animals of the county over the years. We appreciate it so much. I do want to mention that if you're interested in adopting, our May promotion is you're just not the same without a pet. Imagine Charlie Brown without Snoopy. It just wouldn't be the same. So that's our little promotion we're using in May. And during the month of May, we are offering $20 adoptions for all cats and adult dogs. Puppies will be regular price because they require more care and more vaccinations. We have some upcoming adoption events. We'll be at Barks for Parks on May 3rd in Bowie Park in Fairview. And on May 10th, we'll be at the Nashville Paw Cover Dog Competition at Lenox Village. And then on May the 19th, we'll have another Raise the Stakes night at Logan's Cool Springs and Spring Hill. That's every third Monday of the year between 4 and 10 p.m. If you eat at Logan's and mention that you're participating in the shelter fundraiser called Raise the Stakes, they'll give us a percentage of their profits that evening. And on June 1st, we begin our 3-month ASPCA challenge. We are participating with 10 other shelters across the country of similar size to try to save more lives and win our share of $100,000 award money from the ASPCA and Rachel Ray Challenge. And to do that, we're going to be out in the community more than ever. We're going to have a little movie star theme. We're going to name all our dogs and cats after Hollywood movie stars. And we hope that you will be a star and save a life during June, July, and August and help us with that. You're invited to the big public kickoff for that challenge on June 7th at the shelter. There'll be free music, food, and fun. And you'll hear more about that in the community. If you want to adopt a pet, come by and see us at 106 Claude Yates Drive. That is just north of Franklin High School behind the Columbia State campus. And we're open for intake Monday through Friday from 8 to 6 and adoptions Monday through Friday from 10 to 6 and on Saturdays from 11 to 3. The best way to know what's going on at the shelter is to friend us on Facebook, and you'll find out about every single thing we're up to every day. We make 2 or 3 posts a day, and we have some great stories about adoptions on there as well as event information. Judy, thank you again.
Thank you, and I'd like to say join Williamson Animal Services, which is the 501c3 who does support the animal control and adoption program. Join us for all the supporting mechanisms that we have supporting the facility. And I'd like to say, come out and see what we're having. You'll be very proud of what our county has done and all the people have done for animal control, and adopt your next family member. It'll be a delightful experience for all of you.
That's right. We'd love to see you at the shelter, and thank you for watching Pet Watch.
If I could talk to the animals, just imagine it, chatting with a chimp and chimpanzee. imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. What a neat achievement it would be if we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. I'd study elephant and eagle, buffalo and beagle, alligator, guinea pig and flea.